We'll be your guide as we unearth the forgotten landmarks, fauna, and Aboriginal people that once roamed this land. Long before the concrete jungles and bustling streets of Sydney, the region was home to an array of fascinating and awe-inspiring creatures. Among them, the Diprotodon, the largest known marsupial to have ever existed, a sort of megafauna. Imagine, standing before you, a creature standing over 2 meters tall, weighing up to 3 tons and resembling an enormous wombat. This creature was an herbivorous giant which roamed the ancient grasslands and woodland that covered the area thousands of years ago. However, the Diprotodon was not alone in this prehistoric paradise. Sydney was also home to a remarkable species of kangaroo which no longer exists. Towering 3 meters in height, it is significantly larger than its modern-day counterpart. Imagine a kangaroo so immense it could effortlessly clear an obstacle with one single bound. However, these are gentle giants that could be seen grazing upon the luscious vegetation which was once widespread throughout the Sydney landscape. However, the story of these incredible creatures takes a tragic turn. As the climate changed and human populations grew, the Diprotodon and the giant kangaroo slowly started to vanish from the Sydney region. Unfortunately, we can only imagine the awe and wonder that these creatures were like.
Of course, the only known people to perhaps encounter these magnificent creatures were the Eora people. The specific tribe that roamed the land was the coastal tribe known as the Gadigal. They were resilient and resourceful people, intimately connected to the land, waterways, and the abundant natural resources that sustained their way of life. The Gadigal had a profound understanding of the land's ecosystems and seasonal cycles, allowing them to hunt, gather, and cultivate food in harmony with nature. This tribe possessed a rich oral tradition, passing down knowledge, stories, and spiritual beliefs from one generation to the next. Spiritual connection was the most significant aspect of Gadigal culture. They believed the natural world, including plants and animals and landmarks, were all imbued with spiritual significance and were interconnected with their own existence. For example, Uluru Rock was a resting place for spirits. However, now it is considered to be a national identity and economically profitable place for non-Aboriginal descendants. Ceremonies, rituals, and songlines, all spoken with the Darug language, maintain this sacred connection. Unfortunately, with the arrival of European settlers, the Gadigal faced immense challenges such as the disposition of their lands, violence, introduction to foreign customs, resulted in the erosion of their traditional ways and suppression of their cultural practices. The Europeans also brought smallpox with them, which killed 90% of the Gadigal people. Today, the Darug language is barely spoken and lost in time. There are a few descendants who still practice their culture.
As more and more Europeans came to Sydney, the Gadigal slowly declined in numbers as European influence continued to expand throughout New South Wales. The Garden Palace showcased European industrial, cultural, and artistic achievements. This towering masterpiece showed modernity and stood as the representation of European colonization and imposition of Western culture on the Gadigal people. Unfortunately, the Garden Palace met its demise on September 22, 1882, when it was burned to the ground under suspicious circumstances. Many believe that it was the job of the Gadigal, considering the Aboriginals used fire to restore the land because the palace was constructed on the traditional lands of the Gadigal people. This did not go over well with the Gadigal because they had such a deep spiritual and cultural connection to the land, and their knowledge and practices shaped their environment. Not only was the Garden Palace completely destroyed, but it came with the impact of colonization on the Gadigal people. Many endured dispossession, loss of culture, and ongoing challenges related to their rights and well-being. As we look at modern-day Sydney, all of what has been lost has been left without a trace. Today, efforts are being made to respect and recognize the Aboriginal cultural heritage that has been lost in time. Each and every one of these topics discussed today is more important than the last because in order to create a better future, we have to remember the past.